Welcome to this explainer. Today we're unpacking a literal David versus Goliath story, and it's hiding right there in your garden dirt. If you're someone who cares about building self-sustaining systems and, frankly, just breaking free from those wildly expensive agricultural cycles, you absolutely need to meet this unassuming perennial. It's a plant that threatens to upend a massive global industry. We're going to dive into a biological loophole that completely changes the rules of how we nourish the earth, turning standard farming practices completely upside down.
So let's start with Section 1, the $200 billion threat, or the Goliath of the garden. $200 billion. Just let that staggering number sink in for a second. This represents the immense, deeply entrenched commercial fertilizer industry. Right now, we've got millions of growers locked into this really vicious cycle, right? Standard crops rapidly deplete the shallow topsoil, basically stripping it of all its vitality. And because that soil is exhausted, farmers and gardeners are forced to buy expensive synthetic inputs year after year just to keep their land producing. It's this costly, never-ending treadmill. You buy, you apply, and then you just buy again. But here's the wild part. This $200 billion Goliath, it isn't being threatened by some rival megacorporation or a newly synthesized chemical compound in a lab. It's facing disruption from a single, humble perennial, the Comfrey plant. It's literally the ultimate mismatch. On one side, you've got this sprawling industrial complex of factories, global shipping fleets, and chemical plants, and on the other, a simple green plant with broad leaves. But, as we'll see, nature has this really fascinating way of out-engineering human industry, and Comfrey has a specific mechanical advantage that makes it a heavyweight contender.
Moving on to Section 2, the biological pump, the engine beneath the soil.
To really wrap our heads around this disruption, we kind of have to stop looking at Comfrey as just a plant and start looking at it as a machine. Experts literally define it as a biological pump. See, most standard plants act a lot like simple sponges. They just passively sit there in the topsoil, soaking up whatever happens to be nearby. But Comfrey operates on a completely different level. It works tirelessly beneath the surface, actively and aggressively drawing essential resources from deep underground right up into the daylight. It's a working biological engine that runs 24/7.
Which brings us to Section 3, mining deep subsoil minerals with a 10-foot reach.
Okay, so standard crops are essentially surface dwellers. They have incredibly shallow roots and are totally dependent on whatever nutrients are left in that top layer of soil. And let's be real, that's a layer that has often been completely exhausted by years of farming and erosion. Comfrey, on the other hand, deploys a massive 10-foot taproot. Just picture that for a second. We're talking deeper than a standard room's ceiling height, driving straight downward. Because of this incredible structural reach, Comfrey just completely bypasses the exhausted, crowded topsoil where all those standard crops are stranded.
It's honestly like a highly specialized mining operation. First, that powerful taproot plunges a full 10 feet down, punching right through the depleted zones where everything else is competing. Once it's down there, it gains exclusive access to deep, untouched subsoil. This is virgin earth. It hasn't seen the draining effects of surface agriculture. And finally, it acts as an aggressive extractor, drawing those raw, deep earth minerals directly back up the pipeline and into the body of the plant.
And by reaching that impressive depth, Comfrey hauls up a highly valuable subsoil payload, primarily potassium and phosphorus. Now, these are the absolute heavy hitters of plant growth. Potassium is absolutely crucial for water movement and disease resistance, while phosphorus is strictly essential for robust root development and heavy blooming. Standard crops are literally starving for these exact minerals on the surface, but they just can't reach them. Comfrey bypasses the shortage, mines the elements out of the dark, and brings them straight into the light.
Let's look at Section 4, infinite garden fertility and breaking the consumer cycle.
This leads us to a revolutionary promise found in the research, and it's a big one. Stop buying fertilizer forever. By utilizing this natural pump, you actually have the power to completely break the consumer cycle. You no longer need to subsidize a $200 billion industry when you have a biological engine doing all the heavy lifting right in your own backyard. It essentially shifts the power from massive agricultural corporations directly back to the grower. Because this single plant creates a self-sustaining system of infinite fertility. It's a brilliant, perfectly elegant closed loop. The Comfrey mines the deep potassium and phosphorus, pulling it up and storing it super densely within its massive surface leaves. Then, when you chop those leaves off and simply let them break down on the topsoil, they release that deep earth payload right at the root zone of your shallow crops. Your tomatoes, peppers, carrots, plants that could never reach those nutrients themselves.
It's literally nature's perfect, self-powered fertilizer factory, turning sunlight and deep dirt into an endless supply of plant food.
Which leaves us with a pretty incredible thought to wrap up this explainer. If one unassuming perennial plant can function as a 10-foot biological pump and completely replace the need for commercial fertilizers, what other infinite biological engines might be hiding right under our feet, just waiting to be understood? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep asking questions, and I'll catch you next time.